All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Today's webinar, How to Keep Your Career Resolutions in 2018. This webinar is sponsored by the Office of Alumni Career Services at the Emory Alumni Association, and my name is Sarah Rawls, Director of Alumni Career Services. I am thrilled today to be here with Hallie Crawford, who I feel like is one of our regular partners on the webinar program, so it's always especially great to work with Hallie. If you don't know by now, Hallie is one of our partner career coaches. So the Alumni Association does offer coaching resources because we know you all are going to face quite a number of professional development issues throughout your career. So we have coaches who are focused on different aspects of that development, whether it's career or leadership phases. So Hallie is one of those partner coaches offering free consultations and then an exclusive discount for Emory alumni. And we're glad that she's joining us today on this webinar. If you leave this webinar today and you realize that you are a little bit more stuck in terms of the direction you'd like to go in this year with your career path, especially if you're thinking about changing careers and you're not really sure about your plan or which industry or function is best suited to you, you might think about signing up for our Ideal Career Workshop, which is our next partnership with Hallie. I've sent out a link in the chat area to that webinar. It's actually a webinar series, 4 parts, and it's interactive. So it's not like our webinars, our typical webinars where everyone's listening to the presenter. It's a small group of alumni who are engaging and sharing their career issues and brainstorming with one another while Hallie guides you through those sessions. And there's homework in between and calls with Hallie. So it's very much a time commitment. So think about that and let Hallie and I know if you have any questions.
Yeah.
But for today, yes, and Hallie will tell you more about that. But thank you for those of you who sent in questions in advance. We will leave time at the end of the webinar for Q&A. So go ahead and type in any questions that you have for Hallie, and we will get to those at the end. And just a bit more about Hallie. She is a certified career coach and based in Atlanta, so thankfully we get to see her in person. And for Atlanta alumni, you could meet her in person or over the phone. Her company, HallieCrawford.com, and team of coaches have helped thousands of people nationwide uncover their dream career and make it a reality. Hallie is regularly featured as a career expert in the media, including Forbes.com, The Wall Street Journal, CNN, AJC, and Fox Business News. And I will send you her website and her information on our website so you can learn more about Hallie. But thank you for joining us. I'll now turn it over to you. And actually, one last thing, I do want to remind everyone, if you need to step out during this session, the webinar will be recorded and housed on our YouTube channel. We have over 80 past webinars on our career webinars playlist on the Emory YouTube channel, so lots to check out there. All right, Hallie, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. And thanks, everyone, for being here today. Happy New Year. We really appreciate your time. And just one other quick housekeeping item, too. If anyone has trouble hearing me during the course of the webinar or viewing my slides, please do let us know in the chat box so we can fix anything techie if we need to on our end. I'm not always a techie guru, but with the webinar pieces, usually pretty good. So we are going to talk about how to keep your career resolutions in 2018. So here's the deal. We all have problems with our resolutions, me included, I will admit it, okay? And there are some common problems, though, that happen with people's career-specific resolutions. One of them, if you take a look at this slide, it looks like this woman's pulling her hair out, right? Is that 80% of professionals are not passionate or enthusiastic or really excited about what they do. And this is one of the reasons or the problems that their career resolutions fail, because they may be setting resolutions or goals that are kind of empty and don't really work for them, and they're actually not in the right field. So the reason why we need to talk about this career resolutions specifically is because they are hard enough to keep personally for us, our own personal resolutions, much less professionally. And when we think about this too, how many times have you set resolutions in the new year and kept all of them, much less any of them? Sometimes keeping New Year's resolutions of any kind can be like 50% at best. They can be very hard to keep, which is why we need to talk about this today. So I wanted to tell you just a quick story though first, that I want you to understand that I know that it can be hard to keep your career resolutions, and in some cases, even know what the right ones are or right goals are to set for yourself. This is me on the far left a long time ago. I'm actually 44 now. This was me in my 20s. And at this time, I'm smiling in this picture with my mom and my sister. But at this time in my life, I was actually pretty depressed. I did not know what I wanted to do professionally. I hadn't taken the time to really gain direction for my life or my career. And as a result, I was floating around lost and actually living in my mother's basement. And I didn't know what my professional goals were, much less, what was important to me, what, the right work environment was, what would be meaningful for me work wise. So I couldn't even set resolutions for my career in the first place, much less, stay on track or achieve them. Okay. So I went from being completely lost and unable to, figure these out. I went from that to this. Today, I love what I do as a career coach. I feel like I'm meant to do it. I'm passionate about my work, and I feel like I have a sense of purpose from it. So it's happened for me. And what I want you to know is that it's possible for it to happen with you. We have a 98% satisfaction rate working with our clients. And it's possible to figure out what your career goals should be in the first place and the right ones. And that's actually what part of what we're going to talk about today is not just how to keep them, but how to set the right career goals in the first place that are actually going to work for you and make you more able to keep them. It's possible to make that happen. And we are going to show you today how to do that using some of the same tools, everybody, that I actually used to get my career on track a long time ago. Okay. So here's our agenda. These are the 3 steps that we're going to talk about. How to keep your career resolutions. These are the steps you need to take first in order to set the right goals in the first place, and you'll be able to keep those resolutions or achieve those goals, or more likely to, if you do it in this order and in this way. So the first step we want to do is define what your values are. The second step is to identify those inconsistencies. Where is your career not matching up with your career values? And then finally, we want to establish and track and have meaningful career goals. And this is the key point here, is that the career goals can't just be like ones that you feel like, oh, I should choose, well, I should try to get a promotion, or I should have better communication with my boss. Things that you feel like you either should say or kind of want to, but are not totally behind it. We need to really set meaningful goals that are attached to certain elements of our career that are important to us. And the final piece here is I have a few gifts for you all. And also we're going to talk about action steps at the end and have a Q&A session, just like Sarah said at the beginning. And if anyone would like, in addition to the recording, if you would like a copy of this PowerPoint presentation, feel free to email me at admin@halliecrawford.com. And as most of you should know, hopefully too, that we did provide a handout for this. That is in the handout section of the webinar, the system up here too. So please feel free to open that up or download it. It will help you kind of keep track of what we're doing today and take some notes. Okay. So here are our 3 steps to set meaningful goals. And then after this, everybody, we're going to talk about ways to track your goals as well throughout the course of the year. Define your values, identify those inconsistencies, and establish those meaningful goals. I wanted to say one quick thing about this too, everybody. I want you to do these in this order. It's important to start with the values first and then go in this order, because that's going to help you set the right goals in the first place. Okay. So let's go back to this slide for just a second and our common problems with resolutions. I wanted to go ahead and set up the poll, Sarah, if you can get the first poll here. I wanted to get a flavor from everybody. How many of you in the past so far have, consistently kept your career, or let's just say actually New Year's resolutions in general? They don't have to be career specific, but your New Year's resolutions in general. Let's put that up, Sarah. And we'll give everybody a minute. And then, Sarah, you can let us know when you want to close it out and show the results.
Absolutely. All right. You all are quick. Half of you have voted. So we'll just give you another second. I know people are probably thinking, does this count as keeping my New Year's resolution?
I know, totally. Okay. Just go with what you think makes sense, because I know we could go to town on this if we had time.
Okay. All right. So it looks like 32% of participants consistently keep their New Year's resolutions and 68% do not. That's more than I thought would actually keep their resolutions. So great
I
job,
know.
guys.
I know. Good job. Exactly. Little, clap over here. So good for the people that are doing it. That's actually better than I expected to. That's awesome. And this is why, this just illustrates exactly why we need to be talking about this, right? Because it can be very hard to keep them and be consistent with it, especially throughout the course of the year when things happen in our career. Whether it's you get a new boss or your company gets sold or whatever it is, we also have to be kind of keep in mind that your resolutions can be malleable and changeable. And if you need to shift and adjust them over the course of the year based on changes that happen in your life or in your job, that's part of the deal, everybody. So I want you to keep that in mind as well. Okay. So here's the good news, right? The bad news is that not enough people keep their resolutions. But the good news here is if you take a look at the slide, you can have that sense of passion and purpose and infuse that sense of it about your career into your goals. Okay. And this is part of, the first step that we want to take here to set the right goals in the first place. Okay. The second thing is that we want to be mindful of shoulds, like I said before. Can you hear me okay, Sarah? Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure. You guys let me know if you have any issues with the audio. I got a little
Yes,
note
it just
here.
went out for back.
Okay, it's back. Good. All right. So if you attach your goals to your values, everybody, you will have the right goals. Like you'll be more motivated to achieve them in the first place, and they will be what I consider the right goals for you. And you will not get off track. You will be much less likely to get off track if you do this, okay? We need to be careful of the shoulds. If you look at the second bullet point here, you don't want to have any shoulds in terms of goals on your list. This is a corny joke, but in coaching we say don't should on yourself, okay? Haha. You need to make sure that all of the resolutions you set are things that actually you really want and are not something that comes from your boss that you don't feel that strongly about. You need to adjust that if possible or find a way to look at it differently so that it can have meaning for you, okay? And here's the deal. If you take a look at the last bullet point here on the slide, and this is just sort of an analogy or metaphor, kind of an image to think about, we all have an internal compass, okay, that guides us in our lives. And a compass, as we all know, taking a look at the next slide, is used for orientation and direction. And problems arise when there's interference with our compass or there's a deviation because something happens. So problems arise and we go off track when something gets in the way of our compass. And in this case, what we're talking about today is our compass is our values. And even more specifically, what we're talking about today is our career values. Our career values provide direction for and the foundation for your goals, okay? And what happens to us, the reason why we deviate from our career values is a lot of different reasons. Sometimes people don't even know what their career values are. That's okay. I didn't know either. When I first, decided I wanted to be a coach, I had no idea what my personal values are, much less my career values. So sometimes people don't know what their values are, so they can't even get on track in the first place. Sometimes we just get busy and we forget to live our lives according to, what's really important to us and make career or job choices day to day according to what's important to us. And sometimes life happens. Family emergencies come up, external situations. We start to live according to the shoulds that we talked about before, or we might start to define ourselves or allow ourselves to be defined by external circumstances. So there's a lot of things that can happen to us that get us off track and not in alignment with our values. So let's go ahead and pull up this poll, Sarah, if we could. This is the second one. Okay, and we want to find out from you all how many of you know what their values are, just in general, like your personal values, let's say, and then how many know what their career values are, okay? And then we're going to talk in a moment about how to define them. And I just wanted to mention at the very bottom here while you all are voting and, putting in your answers, if anyone would like a quick complimentary session with me about, how do I identify my values and we can get started identifying them for you, just email me. I'd be happy to work with you on that. It's pretty easy peasy for me because this is what I do all the time, okay? So let's go ahead and vote. Sarah, how we doing with it?
All right. There we go. I think everyone has voted who will be voting. Okay, so 80% do know their values.
Yes.
20% do not.
That's awesome. Okay, wonderful. And Sarah, did we separate out career values? If we didn't, it's okay. I just wondered.
Yes, sorry, we have values and career values, two separate questions.
Okay. All right. Great. So fantastic that you all know them. For those of you that don't, let's go to the next slide here. And for the people that do, I want you to think about this also, because we actually recommend to our clients that they refresh their list of values at least annually, because sometimes they change in order of priority. They might change in terms of how they define that value or how they live it out. And sometimes a value or two will drop off the list or go lower on the list. Okay. So step number one, let's talk about this first step or continue with this, is to define your values. So to reduce that deviation, you want to do two things. You want to attach your goals to your values, and you want to look at the big picture. And we'll talk about what looking at the big picture means in just a few minutes. Okay. So in terms of defining your values, here's how we have our clients do this. And we find it's actually a really helpful way to do so, because when people just kind of pick values out of a hat or a list, there's nothing inherently wrong with doing that all the time. However, in the past, when we've done this with clients, we like to do it with identifying a personal peak experience. If you take a look at this slide here and thinking about that, they come up with values that are actually more authentic and true for them versus just looking online and like Googling values and picking from a list. There's nothing wrong with doing that in order to get some ideas about what your values could be. However, we recommend definitely doing this personal peak experience exercise, because you'll come up with things that you would not have come up with otherwise. I promise. I've been doing this for 17 years. This exercise, really, really works. Okay. And what you do when you identify this personal peak experience, let me tell you about this for just a moment. A couple of things is it can be a moment in time or it can be a period of time in your life. It doesn't matter what the time frame is. We do recommend that you start with a peak experience versus a career experience, because when people identify what their personal values are first and then translate those to career values, they come up with career values that are more authentic and true to them. Like I said earlier, there's something really critical, in our opinion, about translating from the personal to then the career. Okay. And the thing that you want to focus on, if you take a look at the slide here too, is less about the details, like, this is where I was and I was with this friend and, we were eating this food or whatever it is you need to talk about what was cool or important about the experience for you. Okay. So here's the deal with values is values are our guidepost to fulfillment, especially in our career. Okay. And with the peak experience exercise, I'll give you a quick example. If it was, let's say, a trip to Italy, I love Italy, so I always use this one. For some people, what was cool about it for them may be the planning and organization of the trip in advance. That may be one of the coolest parts of it for them. So their values could be about organizing and planning, for example. For someone else, though, it may be experiencing a new culture and how it opens their worldview. They would have a different value system that comes from the same type of experience, though, that same trip to Italy. And for others, it may be the beauty of the country or the history, and they would have a different set of values. So that gives you an example of how to start to pull values out of a peak experience, and how the same experience could be completely different for different people based on their values. So again, you want to focus on what was cool about it. One of the things we find is really helpful is if you share it with someone like a friend, family member, or someone like me, like a coach or a mentor, they can help you pull out these values. That makes it a little bit easier usually. And we recommend, if you take a look at the slide here, that you try to identify between 3 and 5, start with personal values, like we said, and then move to in a separate column and say, okay, which of these are going to be career values for me that I want to have honored in my work on a regular basis? And then you translate it to that. Okay. We also recommend, and it's actually not on the slide here, but another thing that I suggest is that you define those values. What does this mean for me in terms of my job? If it's beauty and creativity, does that mean I need to like work for a place where I'm, creating something like publishing a magazine? Or no, it's okay if it's not something tangible. It could be beauty and something else. Does that mean I need to be a graphic designer or, whatever it is? So define what it means for you, and that will help you understand what your action steps need to be. Two other ways, if you take a look at this slide, and then we'll go to the next one here. Two other ways, though, to help identify your values or clarify them is to identify must-haves, things that you have to have in your life. For example, if it's really important to you to eat healthy food, you may have a value of health and wellness. If you must have time outdoors regularly, like, gosh, you love to go running or kayaking or whatever, a value of nature. Those are some kind of basic, straightforward examples, okay? Also, things that frustrate you or make you angry, like unfairness in the workplace. For example, you may have a value of justice. So also look at things that are annoying or aggravating to you, because the opposite of those things, or whatever might be inherent in that, can be a clue to a possible value. Okay? So I'm just going to leave this slide up for another second here so you can kind of process how to define your values. And if you feel like you need to do this as an action step, let's go ahead and write that down on your sheet, that you need to either revisit your values or, gosh, I need to really be clear on what my career specific values are. Okay? If you would like a values worksheet to help you work through this, happy to send you that. Just email me. One of the things I did kind of as bonus advice here, I did want to say is we recommend to our clients that they order their values. So order your values in terms of priority for you. This may seem like, oh, okay, yeah, fine. It's not going to make a big difference, but it does. Someone that has a value of like work-life balance first, and maybe relationships, let's say work relationships second. And then another person may have work-life balance, but also relationships in their top two, but they have them flipped. The way that they handle their workday could be completely different just because of the difference in priority. So the priority of your values is actually really important because it can make a big difference in how you handle your day and how you live your life in terms of your career. And then the other bonus advice here is to rank your values after you've prioritized them. Rank them on a scale of 1 to 5 based on how well you're living your life or your career is, aligned with those values right now. How good are you doing at it? 5 being great, fantastic, 1 being not so hot, because this will begin and start to give you clues to how to create those resolutions that are actually going to stick and that you'll actually be motivated to achieve. Okay? So bonus advice there. So let's start to talk about step number 2. And I just love this picture because it's like so inspiring, the path we need to take here, right? So step number 2 is to identify the inconsistencies. So where is our career aligning with what we want in terms of our values, but other things as well? And where is it not aligning? And this is the career model on the slide here that we use with all of our clients, whether they're looking for their career direction, whether they're in job search mode, or even with, career performance or with their strategic career plan. We use this with career planning as well, because these are the 8 pieces that you need to consider in order to understand, A, if you're in the right career fit and in the right role and industry, and B, how to sell yourself during the course of a job search. What are my strengths? What's my education and experience? What's my personality type? And C, how we kind of block out or determine the areas that people need to develop their strategic career plan. So it goes back to resolutions here. So these are the 8 pieces you need to consider in terms of setting your career goals. Okay? And this is the part where we talked, where I said a moment ago about looking at the big picture. You need to set goals in each of these areas depending on how much inconsistency there is. So if we take a look at the slide here, this is how to do this, okay? So these are all the areas you need to consider to create the right career goals and cover all of the areas that are important in your career. You really can't miss any of them, everybody, because if you do, you may miss an important piece that means your career won't work out this year or not be as good as it can be. Okay, so I recommend you print out the model and you go around. Number one here on the slide is you rank each one. 1 would be the lowest, 10 would be the highest. Where is your career now in each area? How satisfied are you on a scale of 1 to 10 in each area? So that's the first step, okay? And then on the back of the page, you do number 2. So you write down for each area, what are the issues, what is wrong, and what needs to be better. Start to think about how it can be improved. Talk to a mentor or a coach about this to get help with it if needed, to find out how to get them fixed and what's possible to be fixed versus what may mean you need to change jobs because it's just not working. Now, if some of you've got a 10 in a lot of the areas, fantastic. You probably only need to work on a couple of the areas. That's good news. Don't make up problems that you don't have, right? But just know that you at least need to rank all of them to be really clear and make sure you cover your bases, okay? So this is what you do to identify those inconsistencies and to help set the right goals, okay? So I wanted to go around this for just a second so that everyone understands what each piece means. It's pretty self-explanatory, but just so you know to be safe, okay? Again, we're looking at where are you now in each area. Fulfillment is where values go. This is like how much meaning or sense of reward do I get out of my job? Most people want to have this in some way, shape, or form. Some people, I have met a couple people that are like, I'm just doing this for the money right now and then I'm going to retire in 5 years. Okay, fine. If that's the case, that's fine. But most people at least want to have some sense of meaning or reward in their jobs. That's the fulfillment piece. The enjoyment piece is what's the icing on the cake for you? So for example, I'll use me as an example. This is the easiest way to explain it is the most fulfilling thing for me to do is to be coaching people and doing webinars like this. That's my main task that I do all day, every day, right? But as a business owner, I get to do some other things that I actually really enjoy too. Marketing, writing articles, doing webinars like this, presentations. There are other things that I also enjoy that aren't necessarily strictly coaching. But everybody, I had a marketing job before that was full-time marketing and I hated it. So enjoyment are the icing on the cake tasks. They're those tasks that you like to perform, but you don't want to do them all day, every day. Okay. So it's kind of like the bonus. Your strengths are the things that you do really well. They're a combination of your talents and your skills. Your past experience is about, okay, how much am I leveraging my experience now? Am I using it as much as I want to? Or are there any skills or experiences that I've had before that I'm not using that I want to bring up, higher on the scale? Education, same way. Am I using all of my education that I actually want to? Or am I missing some pieces? Personality type. Is there anything in terms of my job not fitting for me in terms of my personality? Am I in a role, for example, that forces me to be more extroverted than I can be or feel comfortable with? Or vice versa, more introverted? Or is the work environment over here, just the culture where I am, not a fit for me? Or is there a problem with one of my coworkers that's influencing kind of the work environment for me that I need to address this year? Okay. And then finally, are there any goals that you need to set in terms of compensation? And when we talk about compensation, we talk about the full package. Flex time, it's not just about money. It's flex time, it's benefits, it's everything else, okay? So this will help you define the right goals, okay? So step number 3 is to establish these meaningful goals like we've talked about from the beginning, okay? And what we want to do here is we want to take these 3 steps, if you take a look at this slide, is we want to attach your goals to your career values, attach them to the career model, like we just said. And also the third step, the final step, is to develop a strategic career plan. So Sarah, if we can do this last poll here, asking about how many people have a strategic career plan. That would be great.
Right, we got some voters. Very curious to see this. Okay.
Good. Because what we want you all to do is then dump all of your goals into the strategic career plan and touch base on them regularly. How are we doing, Sarah?
So 21% of folks say that they do have a strategic career plan. So about 80% do not.
Okay, so we need everybody to have one. Thank you for sharing that, everybody. So everyone needs to have a strategic career plan because this is a big piece of how we are going to keep our resolutions and keep our goals going, okay, and stick to them. So let's talk about the meaningful goals for just one more second here, okay? So the steps that you want to take is in order to attach your goals to your values, you want to say to yourself, how can I honor each career value more this year? And write down at least one goal per value, okay? So you want to establish those right goals by attaching them to your values, like we said a moment ago. Then you want to attach them to your ideal career model. And here's what I would do for this piece, everyone, is to, after you've identified, okay, where am I now with my career model in each piece, you want to write a vision statement for each area of the model. When I say vision statement, it's a short paragraph. It's not like a diatribe, pages long necessarily. Keep it short and sweet. But how would this look if it was at a 10 for you? Write a quick paragraph for each one. Because there's something also, as I'm sure you all know and have heard about, that having that vision of where you want to go will help you keep your resolutions as well. So it's not just about writing it out on paper. That's a critical piece, absolutely. But it's also about attaching feelings to this vision that will help you achieve your goal as well, okay? You've all probably heard about visioning, and it's just like professional athletes do. Before they jump in the pool, before Michael Phelps jumps in the pool, he's, visualizing his success, listening to his, headphones, blah, blah, blah. He's visualizing his success. It's the same thing here. So one of the steps in addition to your strategic career plan is you want to have a vision statement for each area of the model because that will help you move towards it and be more motivated to do it and make sure that you're moving in the right direction, okay? And then you want to identify a goal for each area of the model. If needed, if some of them are already okay, you just check that box and move on and get help with this if you need it, okay? So visioning is one way to help you stick to it. The second way, and the third step here to help you establish those meaningful goals, yet also track them effectively, is to develop a strategic career plan. So you want to combine all of them into a plan. I have an example and a template that I'm happy to send you. Just send me an email if you'd like it. And you want to distill your list of goals. Here's what we usually tell our clients. You can deviate from this, but we don't want you to deviate from it too much. It's going to depend on how big your goals are, of course. But we recommend distilling your list of goals to about 3 per quarter. Again, it depends on what your job is, what's going on this year, but also how large these goals are. But you need to have 3 per quarter with specific action items for each goal, okay? And what we do, by the way, in developing our client's strategic career plan is when we go back to the career model, we break it out into those pieces. So they know exactly, okay, here's where I'm at with my fulfillment. In this first quarter, and I need to change it in the next quarter, okay? And we have our clients, just by the way too, have their strategic career plan like somewhere on your desktop, somewhere easily accessible where you can get to it at any time. Set a quarterly reminder, and I suggest even like set aside at least like an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Go to Starbucks or your favorite place where you get coffee or whatever it is, out of the office, away from your home, where you can do some creative thinking to check on this each quarter. So have an appointment set for yourself. I do recommend that you share this with your supervisor if it's appropriate. If you're about to leave because you feel like your job's not a fit, of course, don't share that part of it or any of it. But it's a really great idea, of course, to share this. These are the things I want to achieve. Okay, so share within reason and what would be appropriate for your relationship with them and where you're at with your job, but we do have our clients share that with them. In some cases, your supervisor or your company may have a strategic career plan that they want to give to you. Okay, fine. But one way or another, we want you to have this and meet with them as well on a regular basis and track your progress. Our strategic career plan is in an Excel sheet so that you can track, how long each goal will take, and you can track your progress along the way as well. Okay? So we're going to start to wrap up here for a second and start moving towards the Q&A so we can answer some questions for you guys. But first, what I want you to do is I want you to take a step back, and on your handout or on your computer, whatever is best, is I want you to write down 2 action steps that you will take in the next week. It can be anything from, I'm going to identify 3 values. I'm going to rank where my ideal career model is, where each piece is, and write down 1 action step. I'm going to ask Hallie for the strategic career plan because I already know my values. I just need to put my goals in there, whatever it is for you. Write down 2 action steps, and please feel free to share them in the chat box. That sometimes can help with like putting it out there, helps with accountability, right? Like we talked about before. And remember too, everyone, writing this down is so critical as well because it makes it real, right? So the visioning and the writing it down, in addition to checking it regularly, is really important. So as you're writing and thinking, I want to remind you to push yourself outside your comfort zone with your goals, everybody, for this year. The greatest risk in life is not taking one. This is my favorite quote. This gets me through all the tough times when I need to kind of push myself past my comfort zone. So I want you to set high reaching goals for this year, because the more you do that, the closer you'll get to it if you push yourself rather than staying safe. Okay. And then I wanted to tell you too, and let's go ahead and everyone put in your questions. We'll move to the Q&A portion here. But I wanted to tell you about this program. It is awesome. We get amazing reviews from it. This is for people who need to figure out if they're in the right career fit right now, or if they need to make a change. And for those people who are like, oh my gosh, I know I'm not in the right job and I don't know what the right thing is. It is an amazing program because you get so much with it. Our complete Ideal Career Workbook, which is our whole coaching program to help people figure out their direction. The workbook is based on the career model that we just showed you. It starts Wednesday, January 31st. These are actually some quotes from people who were alum and participated in this program. Like Sarah said, it is highly interactive and you get individual coaching with me as well as part of it. And these are some examples of where our clients have gotten jobs afterwards. Okay, so it's a really great program. Highly encourage you to check it out. And Sarah, if you would, send the link to that in the follow-up email, that'd be great too.
Absolutely, we'll do that.
Really good stuff. So right. I'm ready for Q&A.
Okay, great. So everyone fire away with the questions that you have for Hallie, or maybe some things you're still mulling over as you create your plans. So first question, can you talk more about creating SMART goals?
Yes, SMART goals. Okay, so SMART goals need to be measurable, they need to be specific, they need to have a time frame, they need to be realistic and, results oriented. So the deal with SMART goals, and you know what, I always forget the acronym, Sarah, so I'm going to actually look it up so I can be really specific.
Yep,
with
here, you know what, I will.
Because some people say different things. I know, this is what's so great though.
So they need to be specific.
Yep, like we
measurable,
said. Yep.
Assignable, realistic, and time related.
Yes, time bound. Okay, so let me go through these for you guys just so you understand. The specific is like, you need to know what it is. You can't say I'm going to lose weight or I'm going to, get fit this year. You need to say I'm going to lose this many pounds. Like you have to be as specific as you can. So if it's something for your career and I want to get a promotion, well, what is that promotion? What is the exact job title? When do you want that to happen? And then you have to think obviously about what the action steps are, okay? The measurable is meaningful and motivating in some cases, but it's also measurable in terms of when it will happen. So again, it can't be like, well, I'm going to feel better about my job by the end of this year. That's not measurable necessarily. One could argue that it is, but you guys get my drift. So you need to be able to measure it and know when it's happened. Achievable needs to be, it needs to be attainable, realistic. So you can't say, I'm going to go from an admin assistant to the CEO this year. Of course, it needs to be realistic, but remember, or attainable, but remember what I said about stretching yourself. I still encourage you to do that. It needs to be relevant or reasonable, realistic, like we said, results-based though too. So relevant to your job, like, okay, it needs to be like these skills I need to attain or achieve are going to be relevant to my goals and, what I want to achieve in the long run. And the time bound, the T is, okay, what's the deadline for each action item? And in our strategic career plan template, we have the, columns for each of those. Does that answer, Sarah, do you think?
I will let that person follow. If they have a follow-up question, then they can reach out
Yeah, feel
again.
free.
So we have a good question here. Every time I made a plan, I do not finish it. So would you please talk through about the implementation period, how to be better about implementation?
Sure. So if you struggle with, having the quarterly planning isn't enough for you, like setting appointments for yourself monthly to review it. And like I said, like setting aside the time, a time of day that you are more likely to get to it. Get an accountability partner if you have to and say, Joe or Sarah, my friend, whoever, I want to meet you for coffee on January 31st. Will you meet me there because I'm going to talk to you about my strategic career plan? Great. And then Sarah's going to bug you the day before if you don't, and make sure you're going to show up. So accountability partners can help with this as well. So appointments, you can give yourself a free, like not a free, but like a gift, like, a carrot. What am I going to give myself for sticking to this or sticking to that appointment that I have? And then also, like I said before, having that plan somewhere easily accessible where you can access it quickly and easily. If you're a visual person, and it's worse if it's hidden on your computer and you need to, stick it on your wall, then do that. Things don't all have to be dumped on our computer these days. I think we've moved more towards that, which I understand, but I have to have certain things on my wall or else I'm not going to do them and I'm going to forget.
Okay, I do agree those accountability partners are key.
Yes.
Okay, so how would your advice here today be different for our senior folks who are more experienced and making a career transition later in their career?
So what you need to do is you need to identify and define exactly, okay, what is that transition you want to make? Is it realistic? Is it reasonable? Based on the level that you're at in your organization. And what do you need to do in order to maybe overcome the possible hurdles, like you're overqualified, those kinds of things. But you need to define the direction first and what the goals are. But understand what your situation is. So make your goals applicable to your level and your situation. And then usually more senior level people will have a stronger network, a larger network. So there's more people that you can tap into probably for accountability, but also for networking to help you achieve those goals, to get information, to identify a mentor in the new direction that you want to pursue. That's a possibility as well. But besides that, honestly, it's going to be the same for the most part.
Okay, all right, and probably networking will be even more key at that senior level since you're not necessarily going to be looking at a ton of jobs advertised on those job boards out there.
Yes, exactly.
Recruiters.
And
So
recruiters.
this
Yep.
is, yeah, I love this question as a nonprofit professional, so I'm sure many people feel this. We have someone here whose boss is supporting their career goals. So they encourage this person to take on more responsibility, but unfortunately the team's needs aren't actually conducive to this person moving up because there isn't additional budget to hire someone to come in below this person. So it's more responsibility added, nothing else pushed off the plate. So how should I balance being a team player with going after my career goals, especially when I really like and want to support my team?
Sure. No, that's great. So prioritize them first. If you're like me, you try to get everything done at once and I overwhelm myself, right? It's like, I want it all now. So one of the things to do is look at all of them and say what can be achievable or needs to be achievable right away versus what can wait. And then share that with your team. Hey, I know this is on the list. We're going to get to it in Q4, or whatever it is. So prioritize it so you have a clear roadmap for the year and you're not stressing yourself out trying to do all of it, but communicate and let them know that, it's on the docket. Um, Ask and identify what team members have strengths that actually could help you make your job more efficient or teach you something that could help you be more efficient in your job. So either tap some people that may not have been tapped yet for certain, tasks or roles that they actually might be really good for, just small things, right? But think about the composition of your team and what their strengths are and how you might be able to move things around or ask people for some help if needed. And think about that for
Out
yourself
there
as
for a
well.
minute.
Okay, is it a little bit better now? Can you hear me, Sarah?
Yep, you came back.
Okay, good. All right, good. I apologize for that,
Yes,
guys.
we
I'm
can
not
hear
sure
you.
what it is. So look at your teammates'
Problem.
strengths to see where you might be able to move things around or shift things or tap them, because people that are good at something, like, it doesn't take them nearly as long. And if the composition of the team is a little bit off in terms of strengths, kind of reworking things a little bit could make a big difference. And it may be the case for you as well. Also, you can take a look at and say, okay, where can I be more efficient in my job? Is there software or is there an app that can help me with something that I just don't know about? And talk with colleagues that are at other organizations even, because maybe they know about resources that you just haven't learned about. And then finally, if there's a couple things that you're just like, I don't feel like I can get to this year, then just talk with your supervisor about that and say, here's the list. And you don't go back to them and say, I can't do this, that's it, but you say, I'm struggling because I'm not sure if all of these are realistic. So can you help me with these two? Because I'm wondering if they could be either deferred to the following year or something like that. Okay. So hopefully that gives you some ideas about how to manage around it.
Okay. All right, great. And we have someone here who is actively in the process of looking for new jobs and is going out there networking, doing career exploration, revising the resume, but she doesn't really know where to start and is wondering if all these things should be happening simultaneously or if you start with the values and then move on from there.
You start with the values first, and you start with, how do I figure out my career direction? So I would start with values, number one, and number two, then I would start filling out the ideal career model, and that's it. You just take, the time to figure out your direction in the first place, and then you work on these other things, because the direction is the, foundation of everything else.
And
Okay.
going back to your 8-item ideal career model, could you go back to that for a moment, Hallie? We're wondering if are you ranking them? Do you know which ones are more correlated with career satisfaction than others?
They're all related. They're all really important to career satisfaction. Fulfillment, honestly, if I were to pick, fulfillment would be the biggest one. But honestly, fulfillment, environment is really important, because you could have all of these other pieces in place, but if your work environment is off, you're out. It's not going to work. Some people, it really depends on the person. Some people, they may be underpaid, but everything else is okay, so it's okay with them. So if I had to pick, I would say environment, strengths, and fulfillment. Those would be the three. And like I said, if you want to copy the presentation, I can send that to you too, so you've got a copy of this.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
All right. So we have someone who has been attempting to transition and pursuing many certifications to allow them to make that transition. What is your suggestion to ensure that success actually occurs once they have the qualifications, but they need to get themselves in the position?
Sure. I would start doing informational interviews with people in those types of jobs to expand your network for job search purposes, but also to learn more about what employers are looking for. What should I be saying and doing to put my best foot forward, finding out directly from the horse's mouth, the people that are in it. So the informational interviews and networking is the next step.
All right, great. And we have someone who recently started a job at a firm that's a great fit, so congratulations. But they are wondering how specific their goals should be to themselves and how tailored they should be to their job and workplace.
Great question. I would start with yourself first and then match it up to the organization. So start with you, and then as best as you can, match it up to those. Now, if there's if there's a goal or two that's like, they want me to do this, I'm not that into it, but I have to, okay, fine. But if you start with you first, you'll be more likely to be able to kind of match up your values and what you want with the organization's values. And I would still put the organization's goals. I would still put those on the list as well, but make sure that you're working towards yours too, or else you'll get resentful. It has to be both.
Okay. All right, perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time today. We do have one more question that just came in, so I'm going to go ahead and ask. This person is in a position she truly enjoys, and everything is great except the integrity of some of the people in leadership positions, which is questionable to her. So she's struggling with whether she should leave an almost perfect job if you're not in agreement with leadership. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's hard for me to answer without knowing more. That's why it's good I need to get to know people a little bit more sometimes too. But it depends on, I think, once you do, your values, if the integrity, like what's going on with them, if it's unethical behavior, okay, that's one thing. But if it's something else that rubs against your values, it's going to be a problem in the long run. So I would say a couple things. Number one, if it's infiltrating all areas of the culture and the work environment, then you probably do need to move on at some point. You don't have to do it tomorrow. I would start looking and just kind of putting some feelers out and see what other possibilities there are. But also, once you do your values and understand and kind of match those up with what's going on, if they're not totally, rubbing your values the wrong way, it could be possible that, you can stay there for a little bit longer. But in my opinion, you could stay for a few more years probably, but eventually you're going to have to move on one way or another. I think it's too hard.
Right. But if all other things are perfect right now, then maybe it's a job you can do for a couple of years, because if you really enjoy the environment, that is tough to give up.
Yeah, exactly. And gain additional skills and experience and then say, okay, I'm going to start looking, but you might give yourself a few years to be looking and know what's out there.
Okay. All right,
Cool.
great. Well, thank you so much, Hallie. And anything else you want to add other than I will be sending everyone a copy of the Ideal Career Workshop along with information on working with Hallie as a coach, and also upcoming webinars. We have several coming up this month.
Yep, that's awesome. Thank you guys so much for your time today. I hope it was helpful.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Okay, bye-bye.